What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the More Than Philly Sports Network. It is great to be here with all of you this evening. It's great to be live. I know we do this a little bit less common than we usually do, so it's always fun to be able to go live and interact with some of our viewers. With that being said, I am always joined alongside my co-host, Gavin Tony. It's been 365 days since arguably the first domino, I'd say at the very least. And we do have a timeline we're going to go through this whole week for those who have been listening or watching some of our premieres. We've been going through this day in history, referring to last year specifically. So with that being said, I bring Gavin Tony. Gavin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Zach. Listen, today's an awkward feel, Zach. It's really hot outside. It's March. It doesn't make sense, all right? Normally it's cold and snowing. I don't have a problem with it, Zach. You said to me earlier, warm weather fixes a lot of problems. Zach, there's one problem that warm weather can't fix is that my room gets hot. All right, I don't like that. It's March. I like to be cold during this time of year. Besides that, Zach, I'm all right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Look, a year later, it's been a crazy year. I think that everybody can agree with that. I think that's an understatement at the very least. But with that being said, March 11th, 2020, 6:36 p.m. today. I know we're in 2021, but a year ago right now, the Utah Jazz were expected to begin their game against the Oklahoma City Thunder in OKC. And the Rudy Gobert positive test probably came back no later than an hour from now. Their tip-off was 8 o'clock. The Sixers actually started at 7 o'clock and were done by 9. So their game was done without any understanding of what was going on. But there is life outside the sports world, and we do try to cover it as much as we can within our own scope. And today we're going to do that. Today we're going to kind of go through a timeline of that entire day. I do remember it was a Wednesday. It was similar weather. It was in the 60s. It was warm outside. Fortunately, no snow on the ground to melt. But no, it was a mild day in March. I remember that entire week after the shutdowns began. It was very nice outside. But in all seriousness, you take a look at some of these different circumstances, and whether it be around the world or sports, whatever our preferences us as high schoolers, we kind of our focuses are shifted a little different than what's going on the nightly news day in and day out. But we do have a timeline that we're going to go through of what exactly happened on this day just a year ago. This is really a day in history that we all remember. We all remember the day the NBA shut down. We've referenced it at least twice on this show. We've had a few video clips from it. Unfortunately, we don't have them to show today. But we've showed it before. And I don't know. This is just a tough time because the next morning, the NBA shut down, but everyone was going to their studios. Masks weren't a thing. And it was just a crazy domino effect as it slowly rolled down. But for us as sports fans, for us as people that like to use sport as a way to get away from the real world. Unfortunately for us, the real world bled into sports, and that happens. It happened a lot since then. I think that we've noticed it's happened a lot more since then for good reasons. I would say so. But it had to be shut down. The NBA made that decision that night. The NHL followed. The MLB followed. PGA Tour followed. It was today, the Players' Championship. They got one round in. It was as normal, and then everything shut down. Everything as we knew it, everything as we know it, changed forever. March, April, May, before anything was even open, the red zone, as we called it here in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it was tough. Restaurants weren't going out to eat wasn't a thing. You were home. If you weren't home, you were working. If you were working, you were putting your life on the line to go and do what you needed to do. So you were going to the grocery store once a week. You were out of toilet paper quite frequently. At least at the stores, they had a shortage of them. Everybody was freaking out at first. The stocks plummeted. I think that there's just a lot to break down. And this March 11th of last year was just the beginning of what would become a very crazy, hectic, unpredictable, unprecedented, everything in between year. And it all started on just a mild day in March after a first-time All-Star tested positive for the novel coronavirus.
Zach, you remember the joke? I came in and I told you, or I texted you the night that the Leafs got shut down. I said, Rudy Gobert really is the defensive player of the year. Shut down everything. Shut down the whole league. He stopped the whole league from scoring. And now, after losing over 500,000 lives later, that joke is no longer funny nor relevant anymore. So it's like that was early quarantine days, or before quarantine. But no, Zach, last year was all the above the words you said. We use sports, our day-to-day lives, as ways to sometimes sweep things on the rug that that you may not think that still goes on in this country. What I mean by that is that the unrest in this country, Zach, we saw it in the summertime. We reported it here live. Zach, I don't know how many Thursdays it goes, but we had a great talk, and I still suggest people to go
Back
watch
in
it. I have to
August,
find
yep.
a date. But all the crazy things we said about 2020, whether it was losing famous celebrities such as Kobe Bryant and a couple in the music industry, Pop Smoke and the Juice World, and to a pandemic that destroyed over 500,000 families and changed a lot of lives forever, had a lot of job losses. And Zach ultimately changed the school.
And unfortunately, having some internet technical difficulties. Apologies for that. But as he was saying, I mean, we'll see if he's getting back here. But as he was saying, it's definitely something that has been hectic and has changed plenty of lives. Gavin, you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
All right, perfect. Continue.
Zach, we would never get another snow day, another day's alive. That's what I was talking about because it just changed a lot of things. Zach, the normalcy of seeing just being able to go to work and just watching people learn new things on the fly, whether it was not coming to work, hopping on Zoom for the day. Zach, I joked and said, I'm going to need glasses by the age of 21 because of all the times I sit in front of a screen. I mean, it looks like I'm tired all the time, but no, my eyes just hurt from looking at a screen all day. But Zach, learning on the fly and an eye-opening year. That's how I could just describe 2020 the best, besides the hecticness. I mean, you talk about just everything we've seen. We've seen the good, the bad, and sure as hell the ugly. I mean, I don't know how else you want to put it, Zach. That's the truth of 2020.
I think of it, we've gotten to a point in our show where we can pinpoint days where we were reporting on certain reports. The entire MLB season we did, the entire NFL season we covered, and the entire NBA playoffs we covered. Just sitting in this chair, for Gavin, you, between your special location, between your current location, possibly a few others. I've had 2 locations now I can cite, mostly down where I am right now. But
three, sir.
That's right. I did have a third one when I was on the go and traveling. I've had 2 outside locations. But look, in all seriousness, this has been a crazy year. Just looking back on it, it's been very difficult. And we covered 2020 in a nutshell on New Year's. We'll be covering our 1-year anniversary of our show in June to break it all down. But let's continue with it then. Coming up after this, we're going to be going through the actual timeline of what this day looked like just 1 year ago. Again, 6:42 p.m. right now. Sixers getting ready to tip off, both in real life actually right now in Chicago, but also last year against the Detroit Pistons home in Philadelphia. So coming up after this, we're going to break down what the day looked like, where it was as it stands, and get some reflections as it's been a whole year later.
We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom-designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewers' choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode.
Let's get into it. I think that the best way we're going to deliver this is sharing some personal experiences from what we remember during that day, and then we'll go back and we'll look at the actual the visual timeline itself. ESPN put a really good one up this morning. I'll kick it off. I don't remember much until about 2 p.m., 2:30 in the afternoon. We had just gotten out of school, again, mile a day, and I'm walking down to the junior lot to go get my car. Yes, that long walk I had to do every day. Gavin, I remember doing that with me a few times after
that walk during the cold. That walk during the cold, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just say if you were to do that walk from the school building to where his spot was, because it wasn't Zach. It couldn't be right at the end of the walkway. It had to be.
You had to go further. You had to go further.
Let's just say after doing that walk, you can go eat anything you want and not feel bad. That's how far it was. But go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, no, I'm walking there. I was walking with a friend of mine, and my phone buzzes, and I take my phone out, and I got a push from ESPN that said that the Thursday night game, the game on the 12th, between the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets would be held without fans. That's a concept today that is very easy to understand. But a year ago, keep in mind, this is early in the pandemic. This is when nobody knew what was going on. To hear that a game would be played with no fans, that's a crazy thought process. So that was my first experience with it. I went home, didn't really think much of it. I'm sure the news was on there talking about it. And again, we'll go back and look at the timeline. I watched the Sixers that night. I kind of wanted to go because I knew it would be the last, at the very least, with fans. I mean, I'll tell you this. I was under the impression that night that the NBA would be would continue play, but do it without fans. That they were planning on meeting that Friday, the 13th, ironically. Friday the 13th, Adam Silver and the Board of Governors were planning to meet together to discuss. And what I think they were going to do was they were going to plan to increase sanitation, order COVID tests, which were very rare at this point last year. And then and finally, they would have the games without fans, let them travel, all things like that. That all got thrown out pretty quickly when Rudy Gobert tested positive. And I remember I was sitting on my couch watching the Sixers. The game had just finished. I flipped over the channel. All of a sudden, like immediately after the Sixers game, Adrian Wojnarowski tweets, NBA has suspended season. And if you remember, Gavin, the Mark Cuban where he's dropping his phone and going like he couldn't believe it. And I'm sitting there watching it. There was one more game on. It was the Dallas Mavericks game. And then, of course, there was the Atlanta Hawks game where Vince Carter came in. They knew it was going to be the last game, and he hit that deep three, which would be his last ever shot attempt in the NBA. And then, of course, the game itself that was postponed was the Thunder game in OKC against Utah. But then the late night game, the 10 o'clock game, which I was looking so forward to watching because I knew that was the Sacramento Kings in New Orleans against the Pelicans. And the report came out that one of the officials, one of the refs that was there, was also at one of the Jazz games when the Jazz played the Pistons. Ironically as well, Christian Wood tested positive. No Sixers, from what we know, tested positive at that point. But you can just start seeing how the web start spiraling out of control. So that's what I remember. That's kind of in length what I remember. So, Gavin, I'm curious to hear what your perspective was, what you remember from that day. And then, of course, we'll go back and look at the actual timeline and hold it up against our own memories.
Zach, I just literally just left the school. I was at my grandmother's house, my mom's house, and I was just doing what I always do at the school, watching YouTube, trying to digress from the day, and just hanging out, and me having Bleacher Report, ESPN. Like you said, the reports came out that NBA Adam Silver was going to meet with the Board of Governors, and they were going to discuss without having fans. Me being a fan, and I was like, that's crazy. You can't. We make sports. We make sports.
LeBron said that last year. He said, if we have to play without fans, I don't want to do it. Like it was a hard concept at the time to understand.
Because Zach, you're playing. It's like the rec league. All right. It's like imagine playing NBA 2K without any sound on. That's what it sounds like. It's just nothing. But Zach, then I go to the store and I'm having a conversation with my dad. We're just going back and forth about just doing the normal. It's like normal. And, I eat dinner and then I hop on the game with DeJuan and we're playing 2K and DeJuan starts, telling me like, oh, Rudy Gobert tested positive. And I was like, oh man, like, no, let's try. So, Zach, I dropped everything I was doing like as Mark Cuban did. This is all serious. This is really happening. But the sense of urgency, it didn't come from me that night. Now, when it came from sports, I knew this was going to be it for a little bit for sports-wise, but I knew how great Adam Silver was. I knew we were going to see sports again when it came to the NBA, but I wasn't too sure about the NFL in the world. Now, keep in mind, Zach, Super Bowl just happened. All right, NFL's in the offseason. All right, the combine and stuff, I guess, has happened or is about to happen. But, Zach, my other thought was, well, wait a minute. I wanted to see playoffs. Like when it came to basketball, I wanted to see the playoffs. I wanted to see how Boston was going to fare. I wanted to see Miami. I wanted to see the Sixers be somewhat decent, not what we saw in the bubble. I mean, Zach, I feel like I feel like I was being selfish and I wasn't taking the bigger issue. So, Zach, I want to say the night goes by, and it was like a domino effect. NBA cancels postpones the rest of the season. NHL, MLB, UFC, or not UFC, PGA, like you said. And I was like, oh, this sense of urgency, it didn't hit close to home. And I know we're going to talk about when it really started to feel close for us, but from a sports realm, it was unbelievable. You heard, and then it was a lot of finger pointing. It was, okay, well, maybe Chris Paul is in isolation because he went over. Both Thunder and Jazz teams are held in the arena. Okay, the Thunder is allowed to leave, but the Jazz are still there. Now it's Emmanuel Mudiay. Wait, no, Emmanuel Mudiay. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what was going on at the time. But a lot of frustration from Rudy Gobert because, Zach, you remember earlier in the week, he was touching the microphone, playing around. You know, Zach, karma's a real thing, Zach, right there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that early in the week. We talked about it because it was 1 year ago. That's how we've been playing out this week. We get to kind of see how everything came along and it formed. So, with that being said, look, it was a crazy night. The next day, Donovan Mitchell had tested positive. It was scary. First take was on, right? Everything was running as normal. It was kind of like today, but instead, of course, it was not as elevated as it is now, but it was new. And when things are new, they're scary. So that's kind of how it's been. That's how it's folded out and panned out entirely. So when you hear a player has tested positive for a virus, whether or not it was severe symptoms or not, you heard him say like 2 days later, oh yeah, you might lose your sense of taste and smell. That terrifies a lot of people. That's a hard concept to understand, that you're not going to be able to taste or smell. And people still continue today. That's a common COVID symptom. And a year later, it's still here. It's hitting home. The next week's shutdowns and the federal government starts coming out with plans and test kits start going out, whether or not it was late or not. People weren't getting tested early on, and all of a sudden people start showing up positive everywhere. And if you were positive, it was a big deal. At first, you didn't know someone who had COVID. Before you know it, everyone around you's had COVID. I mean, it's unfortunate to see how some of these things go down. And for me, I've been tracking COVID cases since like April of last year. I've been keeping a sharp eye on everything. Look, looking forward, flash forward right now. Yeah, vaccines are rolling out. The president of the United States just announced tonight that every adult will be eligible for it if they haven't been already by May 1st. So that's definitely something to look forward to as we fight through this pandemic as a country together, all politics aside. So with that being said, a year later, a lot's changed. When it comes to the pandemic, as far as behavioral aspects, I didn't walk into a grocery store with a mask on until at least April. I can tell you that. I can tell you that confidently. I thought it was I'll be honest, I thought it was kind of weird. My mom was putting one on. I'm like, kind of weird in that thing. Now it's like common courtesy. Like, it's weird to not wear a mask. That's how our culture, our perspective, everything has changed in the last year.
Zach, little common colds weren't big ordeals. Like, if you had a common cold, they expect you to be at school. If you had just any little sneeze, they expect you to be at school. Zach, let's role reverse. Now we're in a COVID year and post. I don't want to say post-COVID because that's not a thing yet, but we're in a year where the virus is in full effect. It's been here for a full year, and now those little common colds, they ask you to stay away. Everything you had to get a test. Our own teacher this morning said,
"Yep."
He had to, if he has to wear a mask in order not to test, his family ever again, he would do it. But Zach, going back to the mask wasn't really mandated until maybe 2-3 weeks into quarantine. Like, it's crazy because we used to spend a lot of money. I mean, it's like I had hundreds of pounds of masks and like 5 Gators, and it's like it's enormous.
We do love our Gators.
I do love my Gators, Zach, and we need to have a talk about that later. But it's crazy because when no one thought about wearing masks, and this is the time I'm doing physical therapy for my arm, for my prosthetic arm, and the therapists are wearing masks, right? And they had the checkpoint. They ask you the question, have you been to this place? Have you been to this place? And you're like, no. And then you could just slowly see, and you felt like just tension in the air. It went from
the door slowly closing on you. It's what it felt like.
Exactly. It just felt, and like I said, Zach, it didn't start hitting close to home until personally one of the schools in our district, we had the email was sent out, close contact. Then you kind of had the itch to urge, Zach. I don't know if that was you, but for me, I had the itch to urge. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to. I'm not trying to, school's not really worth it for me to catch something I don't know about. It's crazy. It's like, I mean, it was like a revolving door, and it slowly things started to shut down. It was like if the world were to stop spinning, you just slowly saw it happen, and then it just stopped. And then when it stopped, you saw where you were. You were at home.
That's where we all were. Restaurants were closed. The roads were empty. I remember the first thing I can say, I think it was April. My dad and I went out to think it was Home Depot, and went to the garden center there, and it was just, the roads were quiet. There's like nobody there. Everybody's got their masks on. It was such a brand new concept for me. And I think it was for everybody. I think there was a culture shock for all of us as we dove into this. Now it's normal. 6 feet apart. Stand on the X, stand 6 feet from the other person in line, wear a mask. I mean, for me, I've always been pretty adamant about washing my hands. We've talked about this before, the don't lick a pole, as we've said quite a lot in the past. But no, stuff became very slowly much more increased as far as mask awareness. And then again, you slowly felt it creeping around you. Pennsylvania announced their mask mandates, the red, yellow, green zones where we were red. And we went out once to drop off my brother at school. And one place we went to, stuff was more open there. Golf had finally opened here, which, of course, for me, was able to get my golfing in. But no, as this comment says, it was a crazy feeling.
He was still shooting over, ladies and gentlemen. He was still shooting over.
Now, I had a good day today, but we'll continue to focus on that for sure as my game progresses. But tracing back to where it all started, I mean, a year later, it was a feeling of closure, I think, tension, as you described, Gavin, that the door was closing. And for us, it was like, at one point, everybody, I think, had the mindset that is it just a cold? Is it like the flu? Is it more deadly? Is it as bad as the 1918 pandemic? We didn't know. Nobody knew back then. And we still don't fully know. How's it going to end? What's it going to look like? Are we going to have junior prom? Are we going to have a regular summer? Like everything, like things like that were last year so up in the air. We thought it was crazy. Someone asked, are we going to have a post prom? And we're all thinking, why wouldn't we? It's like 4 months away. Little do we know where we are a year later. We're still not going to have a normal one. But it's been a year. With that being said, Gavin, anything else you wanted to say before we dive into the actual timeline of the day that changed the world forever?
Yeah, Zach, real quick. Listen, when it comes to, the normalcy, Zach, there's still no normal feelings. Zach, we were out the other day trying to find a hat to buy and wear, and we were talking, and it's still crazy because this doesn't seem real. I go through my camera roll, and I look at me at this Eagles game, me at the Sixers game, and I'm like, it's crazy to think, like, those feel illegal. It feels like a legal feeling. Zach, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like something that you can't do. We talk about people not wearing masks. Like, when you're not wearing masks, before, if you had a mask on, you were doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing. Now, if you don't have a mask on, you are, doing wrong. It's crazy how in a year's time, or in just a couple more times, Zach, we were 4 months removed from the holiday break, from everybody being fine, and now it just happened. But like I said, Zach, it was an eye-opening year. Some things that always get swept under the rug, and where corporate America and the regular day-to-day life keeps moving on. Sometimes it takes your attention off the real-world issues, some things that need to be addressed, and that's why I always would say, yes, 2020 was a year to remember. Zach, we were living history. All right, we saw some things that we didn't think we were going to see. Zach, I don't think anybody wanted to see. But, you always say you always want to spend time with your family. You were locked with your family for 3 months. All right, if there were some things that you didn't know was going on in the world, you saw it on the TV screen. You couldn't get away from things that you wouldn't know, and family was all you had for a while. You wouldn't go to extended family. You wouldn't go see friends. What you had in your house is what you had. And yes, and walking around, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not the biggest outdoors person, but you would best believe I was out there walking around parks and neighborhoods and stuff during that time. Like, it was crazy.
No, it was great. It was a shame. Late March, weather was great. But no, with that being said, we are going to dive into next a timeline of how the day changed the world as a whole here now as we're getting to the top of the hour. But with that being said, everybody stay tuned. We'll continue to break it down after this.
Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this.
Welcome back here on the More Than Philly Sports Network. Gavin, as always, great as always. We continue the conversation here on the show, but let's get started with it because this is kind of how you remember. You go through the timeline. We got the internet. We got all of these accessible databases. We got ESPN as it reads the visual timeline of the day. It changed everything. March 11th, 2020. And it starts off at 10:59 in the morning, Gavin. We were in school. I'll tell you this, I had no idea what was going on. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the head of the top infectious disease organization in the country, was testifying to Congress talking about some of the risks associated with COVID-19 and what they knew. Again, I had no idea this had happened during the day. We were in school doing our own thing, and that took us up to 12:26 p.m. And yet, Gavin, before we continue with the next one, yeah.
Real quick second, I didn't know who the heck Anthony Fauci was, Dr. Anthony Fauci was until last year. Like, I didn't know this dude existed, but go on. I didn't know.
I think everybody would agree that it's a good thing when you don't know the head of infectious disease, because when you do know, obviously it means that things aren't going too well. But that brings us at 12:26 p.m. The head of the World Health Organization addressed the world and officially declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. I do remember that. I do remember the next morning waking up and hearing that it went from a epidemic, meaning regional, to pandemic, which was global. So quite the issues there. And then 1:54 p.m., this is where the news began. San Francisco's mayor announced that you could not have gatherings of more than 1,000 people. Therefore, the Golden State Warriors responded by saying they were not going to have fans in the stadium. Around 2:15, 2:30, Gavin, that's when I would say that we got the notification that we had known that the Golden State Warriors had decided to not have fans in the stadium. And that, of course, was an interesting concept at the time.
Like, that hurts me because even though Steph Curry's, I think Steph Curry was on his way back, or actually he just got back. And, Steph Curry's must-see TV. Zach, when that brother's playing, you got to stop and watch him play. But no, listen, Zach, after stuff that happened during the day, we weren't even aware of. Zach, it was normal, as my history teacher said last year, business as usual. All right, so that's how we kept it, business as usual. A lot of things happened when we were in school, but Zach, it's bizarre. So go on.
No, it's crazy the lack of things that you understand sometimes when it comes to what's going on around the world, especially when it comes to something that's affected all of us. So the next big story, Gavin, I think we both remember this, 6:03 p.m., Tom Hanks announced on Instagram that he and his wife had tested positive for COVID-19 and were quarantining in Australia. This was one of the first big names that we had heard to test positive for it. And, of course, everybody at that point gets concerned, wondering if they'll be all right, what their symptoms will be as we learned about this.
Zach, when it didn't help that ESPN, Bleacher Report, World Star, all those major sites that people follow on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, whatever you get your news, it didn't help that every time you hear tested positive and you see the player, it just gave you this depression feeling. I remember when Charles Barkley said on NBA on TNT, he said, I didn't feel well. I got my COVID test, and then that was the news broke out. Charles Barkley waiting results. That was the scariest moment in all of humanity because we didn't know. We know, is he dying? Is he all right? Like, we don't know.
It was scary for sure. That's kind of how it rolled. Now moving on, 6:44 p.m. The Wednesday practice round of the playoff championship had went as normal. Players were gathering, were giving autographs to any potential fans. They were at full capacity down in Florida. Of course, that is the event that is happening right now in real time. And that was quite the interesting thought process. The golf was going as normal that day, 6:44 p.m. There was no reason for concern yet. And the players had their practice rounds. They had their caddy players switch around what they did yesterday as well. But they were meeting with fans. They were seeing people at full capacity at the stadium course at TPC Sawgrass.
It's like everything was normal at the time. Our Phillies were being depressing. Disappointments at the time. Zach, everything felt normal. That was the wild part. Everything felt normal. It's like the golf world was fine. Phillies baseball was being terrible. Everything felt normal. They're still terrible now, but I don't know. That's the shocking part about everything. This comment says, I left work thinking I was going back and found out the night I wasn't going back and I had to pick up anything that I wanted. It's like we didn't get a chance to go clean our lockers for a long time. And I know some people have some stuff in there.
I still might actually come to think of that. May have to circle back to you on that. But the 7:06 p.m., Big Ten announced that it would continue its tournament. It would happen without fans. But then the Big 12 said they would have 125 fans tomorrow, which we'll break down again. March 12th, everything was canceled altogether. The Big East tournament started, never finished. The ACC tournament was canceled. Speaking that Duke won last night, and then today, due to COVID-19, have now been disqualified from, which is unfortunate to hear. We'll continue to report on that as we get the selection show underway next week. But Yeah, they were going to have fans at one point, and it appeared they didn't. Now we get to it, Gavin, the fun part. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Oklahoma City. Players are warming up. Introductions are being prepared. Television crews are all getting ready. Everything at this point seems pretty normal. There's a pandemic we got to keep an eye out for, but not panic yet. The next hour, I would say, would become a moment, an infinite moment for everybody, not just in the sports world. 8:26 p.m., just before tip-off, officials brought Thunder coach Billy Donovan and Jazz coach Quinn Snyder to half court to inform them that the game was being canceled because of the positive COVID-19 test for Jazz center Rudy Gobert. Within 5 minutes, the teams were sent to their locker rooms, but the crowd was not informed of the cancellation immediately. Instead, actually, the halftime show that was intended to be for halftime actually had went on for the guests, and then they were informed at around 8:39 p.m. Please drive home safely, and good night, fans. This game has been canceled due to the NBA. You are all safe, and that was the final word from the PA announcer prior to the leaving of the stadium in Oklahoma City.
I hope they got a refund. That's all I care about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hope they got a refund. But go on, Zach.
I think that this is definitely a one of those circumstances where you take a look at it, and it's crazy. Within 39 minutes, at 9:31 p.m., the NBA officially announced the season would be suspended. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeting that out. It broke for everybody. And again, yes, Sacramento Kings, New Orleans Pelicans game was canceled, which was supposed to be at 10 o'clock. At 10:32 p.m., which is our last event on this day. In Atlanta, Vince Carter's 22-year career came to an end. His final game was a double overtime victory for the Hawks over the New York Knicks with 12.6 seconds left in the game. Carter got his final bucket, a three-pointer from the top of the key. And that, in essence, wraps up what I would say was the craziest day, not only in sports history, but one of the craziest days up there, at least, in the world history, just because of how it became the domino effect for everything else that happened. Tomorrow, all the basketball championships were canceled. March Madness was canceled. It just gets crazier from here. This is just a start for those who are watching us and have been keeping track. March 11th was just the start of all of this. And come to think of it, 1 year ago today, at this moment, 7:07 p.m., no one had any idea what the next hour and a half would entail.
Little did you know you were going to be in for a year-long ride, Zach. We didn't know what we were in for. We just knew that what we all know and love was gone for a little while. Zach, and then the question was, well, what's next? Zach, I remember that you told me that your brother came home. Like, your brother came home from college, from Penn State, and next thing you know, Westchester canceled their college or their school classes, and they were home doing it. It was like a domino effect. It went from the upper up to the lower. You couldn't travel outside the United States no more. If you were out of the country, they wanted you to come back. Zach, we didn't know what we were in for. We just knew that there was a challenge in front of us. There was a big challenge that we needed to overcome. But we didn't know that we were going to be in it for a long haul. We didn't know. We had no idea.
We didn't. And tomorrow, as we come back on, we'll continue to break down as it presently goes across the NBA tonight. Look, a year later, teams are back in their stadiums, given it's with limited fans. But I'm not going to say that this pandemic's over. I think that'd be very irresponsible to say. I don't think anybody would say that. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll close out today with that. It's been a crazy year. This day last year was the start of it all. And we'll continue to report for you as we always do. And we continue to look back and learn from what happened in the past. That being said, Gavin, anything else you wanted to say today?
Zach, everybody wants to refer as 2020 as a terrible year. I remember on New Year's, people were saying, I can't wait for 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, just because a ball drop doesn't mean that the world magically is just going to flip upside down automatically. Zach, me and you, we're realists, all right? We know that it doesn't happen like that. Zach, I view 2020 as a year of a lot of things. Zach, eye-opener, as I say, a year of resiliency, bounce back year, and a year of just a slowdown, a stoppage. Maybe this was, somebody saying that we as a whole, as a world, as human race, were moving at a rate that was less caring, less aware of what was going on. And sadly, Zach, we did lose a lot of people along the way, 500,000 plus. Every life lost and was unnecessary. And you don't like to see people lose their lives, but Zach, 2020 wasn't a bad year in my eyes. It was a year to remember for a lot of great reasons. I mean, Zach, look what came out of this. A talk show was born, and when there was a year when there was a talk show was born, Zach, a conversation that needed to be opened up was born. A much needed conversation. Where racial inequality and injustice in the United States was reopened up, and how about just racism as a whole in this country was reopened up, and you started to hear the conversations and talks, and then you had to top it off, and then the end when you thought 2020 couldn't get any more hectic, then you had an election to top it off. I mean, Zach, I don't know what else you want. I'm not a political person, but Zach, when you look at 2020, you think that year will go down as one of the most craziest years ever. March 11th will go down as one of the craziest day in American history. Zach, it's not going to go number one.
The craziest day in the craziest year, or one of the craziest.
Exactly. Zach, it doesn't get any crazier than that. All I know is a year later, we're here. Zach, we learn how to live with the virus. That's always in my mind. It's roll with the punches, Zach. We roll with the punch of the virus. We learn how to. We took a lot of punches with all the lives lost, so we started punching back with the vaccine rollouts. We learned how to communicate and learn how to keep going with day-to-day society. So the future is bright. I'm excited. It's going to take a while. The pandemic is not over, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be like Texas and Mississippi and go out not wearing your mask. And Texas Rangers, I don't know why you guys are having 100% capacity.
Well, they're not going to fill the stadium up, but I mean,
exactly. But
seriously, yeah.
Let's be mindful. All right, people are still losing their lives, and it's still serious outside. Stay safe, everybody. That's all I have to say for you.
The craziest day in one of the craziest years in American history. I think that's a good way to end it off. Gavin laughing. I see the comment section active. Yes, Zoom and Teams became very rich. Gavin, if I could go back a year, I would be investing in them, but that's a conversation for a different day, possibly on our stock show. We brought that up yesterday too. But in all seriousness, everybody stay safe out there. Thank you so much for watching today. We appreciate the support so far. And we'll continue to talk about and break down this timeline of how the world as we know it today came. And it started on a day just like this 1 year ago. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Gavin, anything else from you?
Have a good one, everybody. Stay safe. Love everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow or maybe next week.
Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good one, everybody.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of our videos.